All right, so I'm not going to promise that I'm not going to do spoilers in this. I'm going to try not to do obvious spoilers. But honestly, if spoilers are going to be a problem for you, then maybe you want to watch the TV show or the movie or whatever before you come back to this. So, Presumed Innocent is considered a classic in the 90s erotic thriller genre. It doesn't have that many sex scenes. It's not like Basic Instinct, but it's considered a classic of that genre for reasons I'll get into in a moment. And also of the courtroom, the 90s courtroom thriller. And so basically, it takes these two elements, sort of erotic melodrama with a love triangle between a man and his seemingly devoted but also resentful wife, stay-at-home mom type, and then the seductress, man-eater, femme fatale co-worker played in the original film by Greta. Is it Scacchi or Scacchi? I don't know how you say her name, but she was in a lot of these like steamy late 80s, early 90s thrillers at the time. So anyway, here's the point. That was the basic premise of the Harrison Ford movie. And I forget who directed that film, but it was based on the Scott Turow novel, bestseller, also called Presumed Innocent. And so the film, the Harrison Ford film, early 90s film, tracked the book very, very closely. What was depicted in the book, the characters, the way they were depicted, what was going on. I will get to that in a minute, Sarkeesian. If I don't forget, hope I won't. But I'm so sorry about that happened to you, though. But I don't know the answer to your question. I am not familiar with that film, so maybe I should be. So anyway, so this movie was extremely popular, and it's considered a classic, like I said, of these genres: the erotic thriller and the courtroom legal thriller. Right now, if you've never seen this movie, or if you have, it's actually in a number of ways, it's kind of boring. And the first time that I saw it, I'm talking now about the Harrison Ford early 90s version. The first time that I saw it, I was, I think, a kid or like early adolescence. And I thought it was boring, despite the maybe one or two steamy sex scenes. I thought it was boring, and that's because I think it is a slower paced film in a number of ways, but also there was a lot of subtext that I wasn't getting. And so I went back and watched this. I happened to somehow run across the novel, which I'd never read, the Scott Turow book. And I think I was bored. There was nothing else to read, whatever. So I read it and I like breezed through it in a couple of days, right? When you kind of get in the zone and you're on vacation or bored and you can just, go straight through a novel. And I thought, well, this is interesting. I mean, it's nothing like amazing. It's not like classic literature, but as far as pop novels go, this is interesting. And I liked the characters were interesting, and I thought it had some interesting narrative hooks. And so I wanted to go back then and watch the movie, because I'd remembered the Harrison Ford movie, because I'd remembered thinking that it was kind of dull. And so, sure enough, when I went back and watched it, there was a lot of subtext, particularly between this love triangle, or this relationship between the Harrison Ford character and then his wife, who was played by Bonnie Bedelia. You may remember her as the wife in Die Hard. And then, like I said, this femme fatale, blonde sort of bombshell with a sense of danger and allure about her, played by Greta Scacchi, that he was having this affair with. So anyway, and then there was a sequel to this book written by Turow, with the same characters, the man and his wife, dissatisfied stay-at-home mom type wife. And so then that was made into a Lifetime movie, I believe, but like an upper tier Lifetime type movie. And it may not have been Lifetime, but like a kind of a TV of the week movie, with Bill Pullman playing the Harrison Ford character, and then Marcia Gay Harden playing the resentful traditional wife character, but now older. They've gotten older, right, in the sequel. And so those were the characters playing them. And Marcia Gay Harden, I thought, did a really amazing job capturing what, without giving away big spoilers, if you know the plot of this, what the actress who plays the wife has to evoke, which is a dual and contradictory sense of, on the one hand, being this devoted, traditional, largely stay-at-home wife, although she's working on a PhD that she can't finish, and she's resentful about that, and resentful that her husband's of her husband's career, and that he's freer than she is, and she's at home with the kids, right? I mean, like interesting sort of subplot here. But the character, the actress who plays her, needs to be, on the one hand, able to evoke this kind of traditional thing, but at the same time needs to be able to evoke this really almost disturbing, almost psychotic edge or undertaste of a woman who's deeply, deeply resentful and is really enraged about the status of her own life, and relative also to her husband's. And so anyway, so that's the deal. It was kind of interesting series of books that led to a kind of interesting movie, but one that also, for whatever reason, probably partly because Harrison Ford was in it, became a big classic of the time. It has not had the staying power of something like Basic Instinct, and again, I think because it's a little bit more of a dull movie, honestly. But at the time, this was a really, really successful film, despite even mixed critical assessments and so forth. So anyway, here's the point. About a month ago, I saw that there was going to be a resurrection of this story, Presumed Innocent, on Apple Plus TV, starring Jake Gyllenhaal. And I have as the Harrison Ford / Bill Pullman character. And I thought that was fine. I feel ambivalent, or I don't really feel anything, I think, about Jake Gyllenhaal, but like anything that I've seen him in, I thought that he was a good actor. And he wasn't a stretch for this role, this character. So I thought, okay, cool. And anyway, but it turned out that this was going to be not a movie, but it was going to be I believe it's going to end up being a 10-part series, might be eight to, I think, 10-part series on Apple TV. And it's out now. There are 5 episodes that are already out. And so I was really excited about this because I thought, oh, it'll be really interesting to see some of these interesting themes from the film teased out more over the course of a 8 or 10 series arc, teased out more, and we'll get to explore more the nuance that you got, and some of the interesting things, episodes, conversations that happened in the book that they just could not put in the movie, right? But then I saw the casting choices, and both of them immediately made me think, oh, I wonder what's going to happen here. Because first of all, they've changed the blonde, bombshell, alluring, seductive, femme fatale Greta Scacchi character into something very... And now that I've seen the series, I'm 5 episodes in, because I watched it last night while I was working on some other stuff and doing some housework. But so I wasn't paying perfect attention all the time. But they've changed that character now into someone very mousy, brunette, which is nothing wrong with brunette hair, but it codes differently psychologically. But mousy, brunette, very plain Jane. I mean, no, she's not ugly, but you can look her up. Very, very plain Jane, extremely understated, wouldn't even turn your head. You're walking down the street, whatever, right? And I thought, uh-oh. But then I thought, you know what? Maybe they're doing something different here where they want to show that a more normal looking woman, sort of a girl next door, your coworker next door, could also have a capacity to seduce you and to bring you in and to change, to make you go crazy and, abandon your family for a while or whatever, right? And so I thought, you know what? She looks plain, she looks understated, looks boring, but whatever. Maybe the way that the role is acted will be alluring, and it'll be seductive, and it'll be the sort of femme fatale idea that the other stuff, the earlier versions evoked. So then I saw also that they had casted Ruth Negga to be in the role of the traditional yet deeply resentful wife of the main character. So Jake Gyllenhaal's wife in this is played by the actress Ruth Negga. And Ruth Negga is of, I believe, Ethiopian and Irish descent. And, this was something that I noticed when I watched the series, is that they had changed multiple characters from the book and from the film, from white to black or ethnic, multiracial, and also from men to women. So there were a lot of significant and recurring characters who originally, in the original film and in the original book, were men. And it's not just that they were men, but their maleness was a particular aspect of like their character and the way that they behaved, in a sense, right? So I'm not just talking about like random, outer cast members who are changed. I'm talking about people whose characters are to some degree or other developed in the book and in the film. And so it's strange and jarring when they switch genders. Now, less so with race, but I'll just say this, that when you see a film where tons of white characters have been changed to black characters, and also where it felt like 50% of the characters in the series now are black. It's not that there's anything wrong with that, but there's something that feels very forced about that, because it's a very intentional change that someone has obviously made, and they've done so in an extreme way where now you have 50% representation. It just doesn't exactly like ring true or necessarily make sense. But that in and of itself was not something that was like terribly bothersome to me. I did not like what the changes that they made, though, in characterization, in terms of like deeper character traits of some of these characters and the way that they were played. And I'll tell you about that in a second. But anyway, I saw that Ruth Negga had been cast as his wife. And, at that point, like, I wasn't bothered by the race thing. I didn't realize that they were going to change all these different characters, race seemingly for no reason other than political. But I thought, you know what? She really does not. I've seen lots of movies with Ruth Negga, and she's a great actress, but I've never seen her evoke that sort of shady or problematic, less apparent double side to her character. Like, I've never seen anything where I found her playing a disturbing character or someone who was problematic or psychotic. And if you're familiar with the story, that the adoring wife, traditional wife, she really needs to have that dark, really strange, off the wall underside there, even if it's just, and very resentful, even if it's just barely sort of sticking out sometimes, right? And I just didn't think, I'd never seen that actress evoke anything like that. But it's like, well, whatever, maybe again she'll surprise me. So I really had high hopes for this thing, and I started watching it last night, and I got 4 or 5 episodes in. I mean, I finally did honestly just turn it off because I was like, okay, I'm just not going to like this. But I got 4 or 5 episodes in, and it was really disappointing to see the choices that they had made. They have, in the old show, the femme fatale, the old movie in the book, the femme fatale character, she sleeps her way to the top, or she's trying to sleep her way to the top. And that's just very much a part of her character. It's very obvious. It's very apparent in the film. It's one of the reasons why she targets the main character, Harrison Ford, for an affair, is because she thinks that he's on the way up. They work in the district attorney's office in a big city, and so they all have these political aspirations, right? And she sees Harrison Ford as this like real up and comer, and she decides that she's going to seduce him. I guess I'm giving away spoilers, but this stuff is all unspooled really in the first like 15 minutes. She decides that she's going to seduce him, and then, basically try to work her way up that way. And you find out later that he's not the only one that she's had this game with. Now, that apparently was just not PC enough for 2024, because they have completely axed anything bad or negative or shady or self-serving or manipulative from the main female character, who's now also played by a plain Jane. And for the life of me, it's baffling, because they've decided to take out that whole negative element, because it's not PC to have a woman who's a ruthless manipulator or uses men to her own advantage, or, is sleeping her way to the top or whatever. They've just completely taken out really one of the most interesting, perhaps the most interesting element of the story, and the thing around which everything else in a lot of ways kind of revolved. And so now what you're left with is almost this kind of cipher character at the heart of this thing. I'm talking about the former femme fatale, and now just this ordinary, mousy, boring, sweet woman. And you've made her just this kind of like empty, like cipher. And so it's really baffling why Jake Gyllenhaal's character would would fall in love with her, much less be like so entranced with her that he would do reckless things. Like, it's totally baffling because the woman has absolutely no sense of allure or danger or seductiveness in this thing whatsoever. So they just made it just bland and vanilla and just basically took out one of the pillars of the narrative and replaced it with nothing, as far as I can see. If anything, she was a victim of Jake Gyllenhaal, because he's a man and he's so much more sophisticated. And she was just, she was just this really talented, plucky, up and coming DA prosecutor who just got involved in the wrong relationship. I don't know. I mean, maybe they're going to do something after episode 5 when I stopped watching, and they're going to give her character a lot more complexity. But so far, that's what's going on. It's just so boring. I don't know. You look at a picture here. A second. This is Greta Scacchi or Scacchi or however you say her name. This is the one who was playing the femme fatale. In fact, this might be a picture actually from that film. And then instead we get, hold on. This is a really good picture of her, by the way. So this is the woman in the movie. Oh, could you even see the Greta Scacchi one? Sorry. Let's see. One more time. I don't think you could see that, what I did. I'm terrible with this stuff, I know. Okay. So that's her. And then instead, they replaced that character, that actress, playing now a different boring character, with this lady. And it's not that this lady is ugly or anything, but this is like a really, if you've watched the series, you know what I'm talking about. This is like a really good picture of her. I was trying to find a picture that was more accurate to what we're actually seeing on the screen in the film, because she's so plain Jane, but I couldn't find one. There were a lot of them were just good pictures. So this is a good picture of her. But that is now, one of the central engines of this story. And it's just ridiculous. So anyway, I don't like that. And then here's the other thing. The way that they've now taken out any real sign that that the main character's wife is resentful, or not just resentful, but that she's kind of off kilter and that she has this darker side. They've completely taken that out, and they've made her a more one-dimensional sweet character. I mean, yes, she's at one point, once her husband is accused of a crime, she dallies with she sort of teases this bartender down the street, or they talk about or consider the idea of having an affair, but it's not gone anywhere so far. But she has no edge. That's what I'm trying to say. The original book and the way Bonnie Bedelia played this wife character, the way Marcia Gay Harden played this wife character, even early in the story, there was a definite edge. There was a definite sense of a screw that was loose with these women. And that has to be there, because otherwise, when certain things that I don't want to spoil happen toward the end, it's like out of nowhere, and maybe that's what they're trying to do with this movie, with this show, but I get the sense they're going to choose a different ending altogether. They've basically said as much, that they're not going to end the same way or with the same perpetrator that's depicted in the earlier film and in the earlier book, which that's fine. It's their right. It's people's right, obviously, to change narratives and to remake stories and remake characters for a more modern age. It's just that it's a shame to me that they seem to be doing it for political reasons. And what that's doing is it's really just sucking the life out of art. I mean, I'm not one of these people to make videos where I'm bewailing what's going on with Star Wars, Acolyte. I don't keep track of all of that shit. I hate all that comic book stuff. I didn't even like the first Star Wars movies. I did like that moment in Return of the Jedi, that classic moment, of course, when he finds out that Darth Vader is his father. Like, how can you not love that? That is, just one of the truly most energizing moments in cinema. You're watching that moment, that scene transpire, and then the Emperor comes down and he's like, and he's like, help me, father. Like, I mean, how can you just not but get energized by that? But I didn't like the Star Wars movies either. So look, I'm not gonna talk about all of that stuff, or God, can you believe that they cast Brie Larson in Captain America? Like, I have no fucking idea and I don't care. But where it bugs me is when it gets into genres that I find interesting and that I like the erotic thriller or like the courtroom drama, and like, and I see these classics that they're changing for no other reason except for political expediency, and they're changing them clearly for the worse. I just don't like that. All right.